Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be making a epoxy table with LEDs, wood, some glass in it as well. So right now we're making the form out of HDPE, which is just high density polyurethane. Pretty easy to make. You can cut it with the saw, and then this creates it where you can get that epoxy once it's cured right off of this form, and you could reuse it multiple times if you wanted. Now we are just putting some staples in it to hold that form together, give it a little more sturdiness, and then we will be putting some glue on around the edges. That way it doesn't leak anything onto the floor. I did also put a tarp on the floor. That way if any did happen to come out, that it would get caught and it wouldn't go directly on the floor. Now with epoxy, when you do pour it, at least this specific brand needs about 40 or 70 degrees in order to cure correctly, and it takes about 3 to 4 days. Also giving it a little more structural support just with some tuck tape, which can also be used if you don't use a HDPE mold. You can use this to do the inside of the mold, because the epoxy won't adhere to the tuck tape because of its qualities. But since we are using the HDPE, it doesn't really matter. So I'm just using it around the edges and the creases just to kind of hold it a little bit more sturdy. And also, again, just another way of holding in that epoxy in case it gets through these multiple levels of barriers. Got 3 of them done so far, all fitting nicely. Any rough edges on the sides, those will be cut down at the end step, as we have to cut the sides of the epoxy anyways and sand them down and router them. Let's get the last 3 done and put in. Here we got the epoxy. It's a 2-to-1 ratio, so we got 2 of the white caps, 1 of the black caps. We got the B on the side, so you know that's the extra. We will go ahead and mix this up. I will be hand mixing it today. You can use a power drill. I just think hand mixing doesn't get as many bubbles put into the solution, though it shouldn't matter too much. We will get a thin layer over this entire table bottom. Now that pouring is complete for the first layer, we will let it dry. We will burn off any bubbles that come up and let it dry for about 3 days. We went ahead and let it dry for about 4 days, and then I drilled a hole through the middle for the LED lights. I'll let you guys see how they look. They are 30 feet worth of lights, which will be going all around the entire table. Now that we have that base layer of epoxy, that is to keep it where you're not touching the lights, the wood, and the glass off of the bottom of the table. Now we're just roughing it up, so when we do pour that extra epoxy, it will adhere to this bottom level of epoxy. Now that I have it sanded down and all the debris cleared out, we're putting the wood pieces in. We will put down and tape the light strips down, put the rocks in, and then put the final epoxy coating over everything. Here I got all of the red glass. I had to wash it because it was really dusty and I didn't want to put that in the mold and jeopardize that epoxy mix. Got it all dried off now. We'll put in all the red. We have some amber and some black to put in there as well, just to nicely even it out and keep this going. Got 3 more gallons of epoxy going in to help adhere all the rock down in the wood as well. As always, guys, if you have any questions, leave them down below. And also, we do have a merch shop down below the video. If you want to check out some of our merch, it does help us create more videos for you all to enjoy. Now that this epoxy is in, we are burning off all the bubbles that were created from mixing it and also pouring. That way it's not in the mold at the very end, because that you can see in the final product. Now taking it out of the mold, I was kind of scared because working with epoxy, you don't want it to come out, but it came out just fine. Now that it is all dry and out of the mold, I will go ahead and sand this down the top. And then I also need to smoothen out the edges of it since it kind of has a little bit of a lip on there. That way when I router the edges, it comes up nice and clean. Sand the sides of the mold as well, and then we'll go ahead and coat the top and the sides, and then we'll move on to the bottom. Prior to painting the bottom of the mold black, we're going to use some mineral spirits in order to clean it up. That way it will adhere nicely onto the mold or onto the table itself. Now we're just drying it off. So taking off all that extra mineral spirits that's just kind of sitting on there, that way the paint will adhere very well onto the mold itself. What I'm using on the bottom right now is just some matte black farmhouse spray paint. Worked out really well. It was coming out a little weird at the beginning, but then it came out just fine once you start working it up and getting that spray paint coming out. Sadly, the recorded portion of when I put the oil on the top and the bottom basically just acts as a sealant. That way nothing that gets spilt on it can affect the spray paint or affect the top of the epoxy. That did not happen, but I did get that put on. Super easy to do. Just use a bunch of monocoat on there. And now you can see the table is looking fantastic. I got it set up in my dining room area and got the 6 chairs around it all matching, looking really good. And then the base of the stand is metal and it's matte black as well, so it fits nicely. What I did, so I didn't have to plug it in and run a cord across the bottom of the room, is I have a battery pack down there that's good for a few hours. That way I don't have to have issues with anyone tripping or falling over that cord. As always, guys, leave a like down below if you do enjoy this type of content. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.